Hello everyone. This story is about, what if Naruto was adopted by Guy and fell for Kurenai? Please like, share and subscribe. Now let's start. Team 8 had gathered in their usual training ground at 9 o'clock sharp. There was also a guest in the training ground, a surprise to everyone but Kurenai. Team, this is ANBU agent Nico. She is here to help Naruto with his kenjutsu training. Meanwhile, I will focus more heavily on training you too. She pointed at Hinata and Shino as she said this, wishing that either of them would have taken her up on her offer of extra training. On the few days when Naruto left without training individually with her, neither of her other students took advantage of her bonus training. Naruto remembered Kurenai saying she would ask an ANBU friend of hers to help him, but he didn't think she would show up the first day back from Wave. From what he could see, she had a figure just a tad slimmer than his sensei's, and long purple hair. With her face covered and her yet to speak, there was no way for him to guess her age, though he assumed she was likely close in age to Kurenai. Naruto-san, follow me to a separate clearing and we will begin your instruction. Nico turned and began tree jumping to move to this other area. And Naruto spared a quick wave to his team before following. The moment he was out of sight, Kurenai turned to her remaining students to discuss ways to enhance their training. Hinata, Shino, can you tell me where you are in your clan training? Aside from chakra control and teamwork, I haven't done much for you, even if neither of you ever asked for my help. Shino answered first, a possible twinge of regret in his voice. I have completed the Mushi Bunshin and Mushidama techniques, and am currently attempting to master the Mushi Jaminga no Jutsu. Hinata followed after Shino, wishing she had made as much progress as he had. I learned the hack, Sanjini Sho, but I haven't been able to learn any of the more powerful Juken techniques. Kurenai frowned. Unlike Guy, she didn't really know much taijutsu. A smile replaced the frown as she remembered just who the third member of her team was, though she wanted to kick herself for never asking Naruto to help Hinata with her taijutsu. Well, Hinata, I might not be able to help your taijutsu too much, but if you ask Naruto, I'm sure he'll help. Hinata nodded. If she could get better at the Juken, then her father might be nicer to her and she would be of more help to her team. Shino, Hinata, I'll help you too with anything I can. If there is anything you two would like to learn from me, I will teach you. Both considered her words. Shino knew he would never be capable of high-ranking ninjutsu because of his Kikaichu, but learning a few mid-ranked jutsu might help. Hinata preferred the idea of jinjutsu, and if she had the time, maybe even medical ninjutsu. She would need her father's approval to learn the medical techniques at the moment though, as Kurenai didn't know them. Sensei, I believe it would be best for me to discover my elemental affinity, so I have options in case my hive are wiped out or we are in an environment they have trouble in. I won't be a powerhouse like Naruto, but I may be able to surprise enemies that expect an Aburame to use nothing but insects. Kurenai nodded and pulled out a slip of chakra paper. Kakashi had handed her some on the way back from Wave. Shino took it and channeled some chakra, and was so surprised his eyebrow twitched when he saw his result. Among the Aburame, most people that checked their affinity had Doton chakra. Shino's paper had combusted and burned quickly to ash when he had tried. An Aburame that used non-clan ninjutsu was rare. An Aburame that had Keton chakra was unheard of. Shino's analytical mind came up with a massive positive in his nature immediately, however. If he changed his chakra to be Keton chakra and fed a few generations of bugs with that, they would gain a massive resistance to the ultimate enemy of an Aburame, flames. Hinata considered asking for a chakra test as well, but Kurenai handed her a slip before she made a decision. Even if you don't use ninjutsu, it is interesting to know what your chakra nature is. You may decide to test for Jounin, and if you do, you must display skill in at least 2 disciplines. I became proficient with right hand techniques just for my test. Hinata nodded before using her paper. It crumpled into a ball that bounced on her hand with the force it had generated. Hinata was glad that she had the same nature as her sensei, this way she wouldn't need permission if she wanted to learn techniques. She still thought that asking Naruto about her taijutsu would be more important than learning ninjutsu though. Shino just wondered if there were any Keton jutsu he could use with his low reserves. Keton techniques were often said to be highest in destructive potential and chakra cost, but he hoped there were a few that were precise and only moderately taxing. I think I'll mess with Kurenai's little toy before I get to the training. She should have known I would tease him. Why else would I agree to work on my day off? Naruto and his new kenjutsu tutor were standing across from one another in the same clearing that he had fought Kurenai during the team test. He wondered for a moment how she could have known about it, but realized that Kurenai must have been happy they had passed and told her friends about the way the test went. So, Nico-sensei, what should I be doing? First, I want to talk with you a little about Kurenai. The stoic voice that had commanded him to follow was gone, replaced with a harsh tone that bespoke anger. Why, is there something she wanted you to say to me? Naruto congratulated himself on not letting his nervousness with the subject show. If one of his sensei's close friends figured out the crush he had on Kurenai, the rest of his life as a genin would be incredibly awkward. Nico could see his slight shift in posture as he spoke though, and found his nervousness about the situation hilarious. No, I need to know your intentions for my friend before I will actually train you. So, what do you see her as? While phrased as a question, it was obviously a command, and Naruto just hoped that he would be able to lie convincingly. She is my sensei and my friend. Kurenai is one of my most precious people. At least this way he wasn't technically lying, he knew that he was terrible at doing so. Not what I expected to hear, but I don't think he's being honest. It takes more than just an innocent face to lie to an ANBU. I guess I'll just test him a little. That is really too bad. Kurenai constantly talks about her cutest student. She even mentioned a little something about a dream or two. Naruto froze, he just couldn't comprehend what she was saying. Kurenai likes me? She dreams about me? Nico smirked behind her mask, she knew she had him now. Just one more push and he would break and tell the truth. I really hope that your callous rejection doesn't break her poor heart. She's never even had a crush before now. As Naruto started hyperventilating, the smirk behind her mask grew into a full-blown maniacal grin. He would confess any second and she would have even more material to split with Anko to tease Kurenai with. I really like Kurenai-sensei too, I just never thought she would feel the same. I mean, she's nearly a decade older than me. I didn't care, but I always thought that she would never see me as more than a student. Oh, I have no idea if she sees you that way or not. She just blushes adorably anytime Anko or I accuse her of wanting to rob your cradle. Naruto looked away from what must have been his sadist of a tutor. She would tell Kurenai and then Kurenai would start treating him differently. He felt so ashamed that he had just believed her no problem like that. It was just like Mizuki, except she hadn't had years to build his trust as his teacher. Kurenai had just said she was friends with her and that was enough for Naruto. Nico's grin dimmed. As she saw the shame and blush of embarrassment show on his face, she felt just a little sorry that she had tricked him like that. Don't worry, I'm not going to tell Kurenai about this. I was just curious because she's my friend. Naruto brought his face back up to lock eyes with the small slits in the cat mask his tutor wore. Well, now that's been taken care of. Why don't you pull out that sword so I can start teaching you? The promise that his secret would stay secret and that he would still get his training was enough to bring Naruto out of his slight depression. Meanwhile, all of the other jounin were busy with their own teams. Kakashi had convinced Sakura through some hardcore training that she needed to increase her physical abilities and stop dieting. Really, he just told Sasuke he would teach him a new jutsu if he would tell Sakura to do that, but it worked anyway. Sasuke was soaking up some of Kakashi's many jutsu like a sponge with the Sharingan, and Kiba began working on techniques aside from his clan moves. Kakashi had Pakken help Akamaru with his abilities, and even show him how to keep his paws soft and supple with all the training they did. Asuma had heard about the chewing out that Kakashi had got for not training his students, and shaped up his own training before he could be invited for a spar with his old man. Shikamaru had mastered the academy basic taijutsu style with Naruto's help during their last year there, but rarely ever got close enough to an opponent to use it. None of the Genin Ino Shikacho really had anything but clan techniques to work with, and Asuma assumed that he would just help them with their chakra control and physical conditioning. Especially Ino, who had all the stamina and physical abilities of a leaf. Guy continued training Lee as much as possible, while Neji trained himself due to his belief that he was naturally superior to his sensei, who had been a terrible student in the academy. Guy constantly offered to help both Neji and Tenten train, but neither of them ever seemed to want to. Tenten trained her weapon throwing and minor fuinjutsu skills, not investing any of her training in close-range fighting. Her teammates both specialized in close combat, and she didn't believe it was necessary for her to learn any close-range weapon techniques or further her taijutsu past the academy training. It vexed Guy that only one of his students was willing to train like Lee. Neji would never be able to beat Lee in a fight if Lee actually removed his weights and used the Hashiman. The superiority complex common among the Hyuga had its poster child in Neji, with a firmly entrenched belief in fatalism as a side dish. Tenten just didn't see a purpose in training more than her weapons, even though Guy warned her that there would be opponents that her style would be ineffective against. She would just claim that was why she had teammates. GSI knew he would enter them in an exam that featured one-on-one combat in the final, but he wasn't allowed to tell them of the tests beforehand. The next day, Haku's test took place right after team training had finished for Team 8. Hinata had asked everyone to come and show their support for her new friend. Anko stood and took up her stance for the Hebe style, fingers pointed and thumbs drawn back to mimic fangs. Haku drew a senbon in her right hand and left her offhand free. Nico had agreed to act as the outside judge, while Anko would be the main tester. The masked woman raised one hand, before with a shout of Hajime, the combat began. Anko launched herself at Haku with high chin and speed, holding back enough to test her young opponent fairly. Haku made a few quick hand signs, and a number of needles condensed from the air. They launched at Anko, who weaved through them and launched a quick pressure point strike at Haku's shoulder. The former apprentice of the Demon of the Mist managed to dodge, and made a hand seal no one had been expecting. Both hands held with fingers rolled to the palm, save the index and middle, one hand center chest and the other vertical above the head. Ninpo, Kirigakure no Jutsu. Mist rolled from the edge of the forest adjoined with the grounds. Anko looked around, wary that her opponent might have had more training from Zabuza than she first thought. That was until a second shout reverberated through the mist. Hayaton Hijitsu, Makio Hyosho. The mist surrounding Anko's position formed into a dome of ice mirrors, a reflection of Haku in all of them. Unlike the Uchiha, you have no Sharingan to put me to sleep. Surrender. Anko whistled, impressed at Haku's ingenuity in forming the mirrors without giving away her plan by first setting up the mist as an obscuring agent. I might not be able to hypnotize you with eye contact, but that doesn't mean that your jutsu is unbeatable. Doton, Morigakure no Jutsu. After a single hand seal, Anko dove under the ground and avoided the spray of senbon that flew to her position. She erupted from the ground holding her hands in a new seal, before she used one of her best elemental jutsu. Katon, Karyu Enden. The dragon-shaped blast of flame had both the heat and kinetic force to smash the mirror it struck, stunning Haku as she had never had one of her mirrors broken before. Haku's reflection disappeared from all but one of the mirrors, in which she stared at Anko with one hand blurring in rapid seals. I wasn't expecting one-handed seals, this girl is Chunin material. The only things holding her back are a lack of offensive jutsu, taijutsu, and lack of jutsu not derived from her Kekei Genkai. Hayaton. Hizatsu Hyosho. All of the mirrors save the one Haku was using as a shield turned into large crystalline spears that blurred in their rush to strike Anko. She simply dove underground again, rising behind Haku's position and depositing an exploding tag on her mirror. The explosion shattered the mirror and knocked Haku unconscious. The shockwave had been enough to force her down, but thankfully staying in the mirror had lessened her expected injuries. Anko bent over Haku's still form with some smelling salts in her hand, leading a groaning Haku back to the realm of consciousness. Congratulations little girl, you just made Chunin. You and I are going to be speaking with the Hokage later to determine exactly what to do. I must say, that ice dome thing you do would have been a surefire way to win if I couldn't just dive underground to escape it. You should probably freeze the ground to keep that from happening next time. While upset with the level of techniques that this woman had used, Hinata was ecstatic that Haku was good enough to be a Chunin already. Maybe she would get to call her Haku-senpai from now on. Team 8 looked at the blush on Hinata's face before deciding it wasn't important and that they should go congratulate their newest comrade. Hinata noticed that everyone started walking away and hurried to catch up, determined to be first to congratulate Haku on her performance. Congratulations Haku-chan. Maybe I should say Haku-senpai now that you outrank me though. Hinata blushed as she hugged her friend. She knew she wanted to talk with Haku about her feelings, but she just couldn't throw off some doubt since she knew it was rare for people of the same gender to develop feelings like this. The mixture of her home treatment and her situation was causing doubts that Haku would like her the same way. Haku smiled and returned the hug, glad that her best and first real friend was here for her. Yes, congratulations Haku-san. Kurenai and Shino said together, Naruto the same but without the honorific. Haku and Hinata broke their hug so that she could respond to the rest of her audience. It meant a lot to Haku that Hinata would try as hard as she did to get her friends to get to know her better. She was certain that at least Naruto and Kurenai would be friends with her, even if Shino was a little unsociable. Thank all of you, especially you Hinata Kohai. I know you convinced them to come. A coy smile lit up on Haku's face when she responded, playing along with Hinata's little game. The blush on Hinata's face grew, that her new secret wish was being fulfilled a little, slightly less than innocent fantasies, playing in her head. Everyone left to do their own thing as Hinata went through things that probably weren't legal in the Land of Fire. Eventually, she snapped out of her reverie and went to her own home, embarrassed that she once again spaced out. Haku and Anko had stayed together as the group split, heading to the Hokage's office. This time the Sandaime was busy enough that they had to knock to get admittance. As they walked into the room, neither were able to see the Hokage. "I'm over here, behind the stacks of paperwork." Both turned and looked in shock as the desk had so many papers on it that the old man was invisible in his sitting position. Anko shook off her surprise and made her report to the Hokage, Yugao's opinion unnecessary, as the two agreed on Haku's ranking. "Hokage-sama, Yuki Haku has officially passed my test and I recommend her to be instated at the Chunin level." Hiruzen nodded his head thoughtfully, wondering over whether or not his newest plan would work. "Very well, now tell me, have you considered my other offer? There are bonuses in it I am sure you are aware of." Anko knew that he was talking about becoming Haku's teacher, but she couldn't think of any bonuses that would come with taking the position. She also knew she couldn't really take the position, as only Jounin could take apprentices. She smirked when she finally figured out what the wily old bastard was trying to tell her, without giving away his plan in case others were listening. She knew from speaking with Yugao that Hiruzen complained almost as much about the hell he got for letting Guy adopt Naruto as he did about paperwork. "Yes, and I have decided to accept, even if the little girl doesn't want me to." Haku looked at Anko nervously, hoping that Anko called someone other than her little girl. "Very well. Haku, from today on you are the Chunin apprentice of newly minted full Jounin Mitarashi Anko. Your flak jacket will be delivered later. Anko will speak with you about your schedule for training, and once this month draws to a close, your mission assignment will be done with her as well." Dismissed. Anko grinned and dove out the window clutching Haku, laughing as she ran to her favorite playground with her new torture victim. She meant student, mostly. Haku barely kept herself in a positive frame of mind. This woman that was training her was obviously crazy, but at least she was skilled. Haku hoped she would never pick up any of her sensei's already revealed habits, neither dressing in a jacket over pretty much nothing else or laughing maniacally would suit her very well. A young boy dashed past Naruto on his way home, screaming his head off about a pink-haired demon trying to kill him. He would have ignored it if Sakura hadn't run by chasing the poor child. Apparently the definition of demon was very different among this boy and most of Konoha. Naruto followed after them in the hope he might be able to help the boy. He heard a dull thud and a shout of "Hey, watch it," just before he turned the corner. Standing in front of him was one of the most bizarrely dressed people Naruto had seen, which was disturbing considering he had seen the abominable duo that were his father and Lee. The boy was Naruto's age, maybe a year older. He was wearing black, footy pajamas? With built-in cat ears? And, was his face covered in purple lipstick? How could it have even been legal to go around dressed like that? Even a neon orange jumpsuit with blue trim would be more suitable for public wear. Ignoring the odd shiver that went through his body with that thought, Naruto spoke up to stop the pajama man from attacking the child in his hands. "You know, attacking children is against the law, particularly clan children. If I have been to the Hokage's office ever when there is little enough paperwork on the desk to see the pictures on it, that boy is the Sandaime's grandson." The possible crossdresser sneered, his makeup only making the facial expression uglier. "My father is the Kazekage, why should I care about this kid's family?" A blonde girl standing behind him that had gone unnoticed due to her obnoxious and revoltingly garbed teammate took a step forward and clobbered him over the head with an iron bar. "Moron, the son of the Kazekage attacking the grandson of the Hokage would be an international disaster. Are you trying to make father angry?" The mentioning of his father being upset would have been more than enough to get the boy to drop his victim. But his pride was still wounded and another target had presented itself to his anger. "Fine, but I bet you aren't related to your Hokage. How about I just smash you instead?" Naruto only barely restrained the laugh that threatened to break with the mentioning of him being related to a Kage. But a new voice came into the alley and stopped the impending doom for the Catman. "Kankuro, shut up." A swirl of sand came to life before falling to the ground as a redhead came from it. He had the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead, dark rings around his eyes, and a giant gourd on his back. "Jigara," he started. No he didn't, "I've been here the whole time." "Are you trying to lie to me now?" Kankuro's face paled, his former defiant attitude erased as if it had never happened. The newcomer, Gaara, turned to the blonde, allowing Naruto time for a second look at her. Her sandy blonde hair was pulled into four tails that stood out from the back of her head. Her bar was strapped to her back again, Naruto coming to the conclusion it was a war fan when he saw the Sunagekure headband around her neck. She had a white dress and was mildly attractive, about the same age as Haku he guessed. You were supposed to keep him in check, Temari. Next time either of you annoys me, I'll kill you. There was an edge of bloodlust that Naruto could hear even with Gaara's monotone voice. The short redhead turned to face him, an odd spark in his eyes. Forgive my worthless siblings, they will not bother anyone else if they want to live. Now, tell me your name. While not the most polite way to find out a name, Naruto already knew all of theirs, and the girl hadn't done anything to earn his ire. My name is Mado Naruto, son of the glorious green beast of Konoha. Gaara nodded, but Sakura spoke up for the first time since the encounter started. Naruto's appearance settling her nerves slightly. Wait. You may be from Suna, but even allies from other villages must give their reason for being here. Temari answered this time, Gaara apparently not thinking it worth his time to do so. You don't know anything, do you, girlie? The Chunin exams are starting next month. And we came here early, so we have time to acclimate to the climate before it starts. She turned and left with her brothers, both of whom seemed to have some mental issues. Naruto had stopped listening when he heard Chunin exams, promising himself that he would pass them his first time around and make his father and Kurenai proud. He ran to redouble his training, sending some Kage Bunshin home to look through the scrolls that read secret weapons. No way was he going in unprepared. There was 1 week left until the Chunin exams would start, marking the point in which sensei from the village holding the exams could recommend their students and let them know. The Sandaime was sitting as the Jounin sensei were assembled before him. The sensei for the newest group of rookies were standing together. Mado Guy stood with them, both in interest of his son and to recommend his own team. Kakashi walked in just as 3 hours from the start of the meeting had passed, and he quickly gave an excuse to stop the Hokage from blocking him again. Sorry I'm late, my cute students refused to let me leave unless I bought them a celebratory dinner for completing a successful C rank on their own. Hiruzen grumbled incoherently. Most likely in anger about how Kakashi was actually starting to think up believable excuses. Thank you for coming, Kakashi. As all of you here know, the Chunin exams are upon us. I will begin taking recommendations starting with the rookie teams. Kakashi stepped forward first. It was customary for the traditional 3 sensei to speak first, ever since the Sandaime had passed the Sannin. I, Hatake Kakashi, recommend my team, composed of Inuzuka Kiba, Haruno Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke, for the Chunin exams. Murmurs broke out behind him as most of the assembled Jounin remembered Kakashi's apparent failure as a sensei until the last month. There wasn't much time to gossip, however, as the next Jounin was especially eager to nominate their team. I, Yuhi Kurenai, recommend my team, composed of Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Mado Naruto for the Chunin exams. A minority of the Jounin were angry about Naruto's possible inclusion in the exams, but most thought no different of him than they did anyone else. Guy only barely managed to restrict the joyous cries and manly tears that attempted to escape him. Hiruzen gave a brief smile, before motioning to continue. His son was the next in line, and he had a feeling that Asuma was going to continue the trend. I, Sarutobi Asuma, nominate my team, the new Inoshikacho, for the Chunin exams. This was too much for Irika, who was currently serving as the Hokage's aide. This is insane. These students graduated barely more than 2 months ago. Sasuke and Naruto I can maybe understand, but the rest simply can't have gotten good enough in such a short time to be in the exams already. None of the Jounin were happy with Irika's outburst. Asuma because Irika didn't think any of his students were ready, and Kakashi and Kurenai because they knew that their teams had come far together. I can assure you, Irika-san, that Naruto-kun is not the only one on my team ready for these exams. The only time I expect trouble for them is in the finals, where one-on-one combat is used. Why is it that we use single combat to determine an individual's ability to lead a team anyway? Kakashi came forward to speak as well, ignoring the rather ingenious question his comrade had asked. They aren't your students anymore, Irika, they are our soldiers. Understand that if we didn't think them capable of at least passing the first exam, we wouldn't recommend them. Guy jumped forward, mildly irritated that Irika had held his nomination back so long. Yash. I, Mado Guy, the youthful green beast of Konoha, nominate Tenten, Hyuga Niji, and the most youthful Rock Lee. The other Jounin gave their recommendations, presumably before the group filed out and went to gather the forms for their students. The 4 Jounin who had students of note left together, making plans to convince their students that they were ready. Except Kakashi, who was possibly sadistic and was just going to tell them to go if they wanted, and wait until the day before the exam to let them know. The next day, Kurenai met her team and Naruto's Kenjutsu trainer at the usual ground with a smile on her face. Well team, I'm certain someone has managed to let slip that the Chunin exams were approaching. I have forms here for each of you so that you can compete. I'm certain that if you choose to do this, you will all do well. Maybe all of you could become Chunin like Haku-san. That last little bit was just to make sure that Hinata was on board. Her confidence was on an entirely different level than when the team had been formed, but extra encouragement never hurt. Naruto was beyond excited. He knew that if Kurenai was now telling them, the exams must be close. He just hoped that he would finish his current project before the exams, so that he could have an ace up his sleeve. His training with the new Ibari was not complete enough that he could use it in the exams, but another few weeks and it would be ready. Shino was predictably unresponsive, while Hinata went from slightly nervous to ecstatic at the thought of being able to see Haku more. The exam starts 1 week from today, go to room 301 in the academy, and be there before noon. All three genin took a form, certain that they could make it. Naruto was definitely the most confident, seeing as he had been able to defeat Kushimaru, even if he needed Kurenai's help to do so. Yugao, keeping up her ANBU persona Nico, led Naruto to once more train with his sword. Shino, did you manage to learn a katan jutsu like you wanted? Kurenai knew that today would be the last day of special training before they would reconvene and get used to each other's new abilities. And hoped that everyone had managed to learn the special techniques they were working on. Yes, sensei, should I demonstrate? A swift nod, and Shino made a couple quick hand seals, shouting, Katan. Hozenka no jutsu. A group of small fireballs flew out and struck the posts in the clearing, leaving scorch marks where they struck. Good job, Shino. Hinata, did you manage to get Naruto's help with taijutsu? Hinata responded with a smile, glad to have figured out some of her problems. Yeah, he said that I was too uncomfortable with the movements as I am. He was able to help me cut out the excess movement I had before that restrained my effectiveness in Juken. But he also said that my extra moves could be solidified into a variant style if I worked on the way I had tried to flow more consciously. Kurenai smiled back now. It meant a lot to Hinata to be able to use her family style. Maybe she would even be able to impress Hayashi and make Chunin. Good, now since you've got that ninjutsu I taught you, we can have a spar. Get ready. Hinata lost her smile and went into her opening stance, determination shining in her eyes. Kurenai took up a simple stance only lightly varied from the academy's, not bothering to stop smiling herself. The two shot toward each other, ready to see just how far the once timid girl had come. So Blondie, you tell your sensei how much you love her yet? Naruto sighed when he heard this. Nico-sensei was awesome at kenjutsu and had a sense of humor, but she teased him far too much for his liking. She grinned behind her mask when she heard him sigh. Teasing Naruto had become one of her favorite hobbies on her free days. It helped that she was phasing out of ANBU and rarely got missions anymore. How about we make a deal, kid? Naruto had learned enough to be suspicious of Nico during their training routines, but she was occasionally honest with him. What is it? Nico was glad that he would even consider making a deal with her. She wasn't exactly nice to him when they trained, even if she was friendly. I know you're gonna compete in the Chunin exams. If you win the tournament portion of the exam, I'll show you how I look without my mask. If you don't win, then you have to tell Kurenai. Naruto didn't really think that this was an even trade, and remarked on such. I think I should get something better than you taking off the mask. I am curious what you look like underneath, but that isn't really an even deal. Disappointment almost flooded the swordswoman, but she quickly thought of how to convince him. How about I teach you a really cool nin/gen/kenjutsu hybrid technique and show you my face, will that even it up? Naruto being Naruto, this was a far more tempting offer. His dream made him want to master every major art, including kenjutsu. A technique like she was describing was the ninja equivalent of Neapolitan ice cream, 3 great things brought together in a wonderful mix with its own unique flavor. Besides, he was sure that he could win. Alright, now you've got a deal. Nico smirked, before she raised her sword into a dueling stance. Now that's taken care of, let's see if your confidence is earned. Naruto, Hinata, and Shino stood together at the entrance to the academy, steeling themselves for the coming trials. They had spent the last week getting used to working with each other's new abilities. Naruto had refrained from demonstrating his secret weapon though. He needed to win the tournament that Nico had told him about, and in his mind his teammates were some of his biggest threats. Without using the QB, all they would need is a little luck and they could disable him. Not wasting any time, they walked straight past the horde of Chunin helpfuls on the second floor and into the room they were told about. A glance around the room revealed a number of genin from Amigakure, the 3 that Naruto had met from Sunigakure, and several other teams from Konoha. Others were in the room, but Naruto didn't recognize any Hitayate from the others. He only knew the 5 great villages and aim. They remained in the room for a few minutes, before the first group they recognized came in. Shika, the laziest genin in the elemental nations, turned when he heard his name, only to get cuffed lightly on the shoulder by Naruto. Hey Naruto, been a while since we've seen each other, huh? Naruto looked down for a moment. Shikamaru had been the first person his age to be his friend. But they hadn't seen each other much since the academy, Shikamaru being very lazy and Naruto training obsessively. Don't sweat it Naruto, we've both had a lot to do, right? Naruto smiled, and greeted Ino and Chiji slightly less dramatically than he had Shikamaru. Ino looked mildly disappointed that her shinobi in brooding armor had yet to arrive, but she still was polite to everyone there. Save Shikamaru, who had gotten up late and had Ino and his mother literally drag him out of bed in time to make the exams. It was less troublesome than an alarm, since he couldn't turn them off and forget about doing so. He may be lazy, but he did understand responsibility. Just about everything else under the sun too. Excluding why Ino was such a fangirl. Well, looky who's here. Teams 8 and 10 turned to see Team 7, complete with a black-eyed Uchiha. Sasuke-kun. It's so good to see you. Ino flew directly onto Sasuke's back, wrapping him in a close hug. Damn it Ino pig, stop humping Sasuke-kun's back. Sakura was red in the face in anger, while she had made progress in becoming a decent kunoichi. She would likely be a Sasuke fangirl until the day she died. Stuff it forehead. You're just jealous you haven't made any progress even though you get to see him every day. Somewhere inside, it hurt Ino to talk to Sakura like that. But she was still upset that Sakura had ended their friendship over the boy, in spite of Ino wanting to remain friends. Instead, all she got was a rivalry, and a stupid crush that would never lead anywhere. Sasuke was too warped by his experiences to ever feel close to someone, and Ino already knew it. She just hoped that she was wrong. You guys are drawing a little too much attention to yourselves, might be a good idea to quiet down. A boy with long silver hair and glasses, a few years older than the rookies based on his height and voice, walked up to them and pointed out the rest of the room. All the other genin were staring at the spectacle the rookies were making, a good number of them glaring. Don't get big-headed just because this is the first time in years that all the rookies were nominated. I am something of a veteran of these exams, and could help you all out. Sakura spoke up, nervous from all the glares. Veteran? How many times have you taken the exam? The teen smiled softly, looking about as threatening as a kitten, as he answered. Oh, this is my 7th exam. The name's Yakushi Kabuto, former rookie sensation like yourselves. That got even more nerves in the rookies than the glaring. The idea that someone that must be skilled enough to be nominated had failed so many times. I have a lot of information on the participants now though. And enough experience to make Chunin this time around for sure. Sasuke took the lull in conversation as an opportunity to voice his questions. You said that you have info on the other competitors. Can you give me information about Rock Lee and Mato Naruto of Konoha? The rest of the rookies looked confused as to why he wanted information on comrades. But none spoke as Kabuto pulled a blank deck of cards from his pouch. It's no fun if you already know their names, but here we go. Rock Lee first. Got him. Rock Lee is a first-time examinee. Jounin Sensei is Mato Guy the magnificent green beast of Konoha. His taijutsu skill is phenomenal, unmatched by anyone else in this exam. The two closest are Hyuga Niji and Mato Naruto. Has no skill outside taijutsu, with base skill in standard weaponry. Sasuke nodded, it made sense how someone that focused so heavily in one skill would be able to beat him as Lee did. Though it was hard to take the loss anyway. Next is Mato Naruto, a rookie to both being a ninja and the exams. Jounin Sensei is Yuhi Kurenai, a rookie jounin known as the Mistress of the Crimson Glare in several bingo books. Mato Naruto is well-balanced, with prodigious skill in taijutsu, ninjutsu, jinjutsu, and has some talent with fuinjutsu and kenjutsu. Among other interesting facts, his birth name is Uzumaki Naruto, his favorite food is ramen, his chakra reserves are higher than anyone based in Konohas with the exception of Jiraiya of the Sannin. And he has mastered 2 jutsu created by the Nidaime Hokage. Most interesting is that he is credited with being the man responsible for the death of Kurira Kushimaru, former member of Kiri's 7 shinobi swordsmen. Jaws dropped around the entire room, no one had expected the blonde to have been adopted by an S-rank ninja and have defeated an A-rank. Naruto had his own question about a competitor, an odd feeling he'd ignored at the time, but was coming back full force now that they were in the same room. If you don't mind, Kabuto-san, I'd like to hear about Gaara from Suna. Kabuto was the only person not surprised by Naruto's achievements, besides his own team, so he quickly granted the request. Here we are. Full name, Sabaku no Gara, skills unknown. This is his first time at the exams, along with his siblings. Jounin Sensei is Baki the Wind Sword, and his teammates are his older siblings. He is the son of the Yondaime Kazekage, and according to my card, has never been injured on a mission. Including 2 B ranks. The announcement of a second powerhouse was more than a number of the genin could handle. And rather than let their hopes die, they ignored everything else, the Konoha shinobi said. Kiba was stunned that someone stronger than Naruto or Sasuke was at the exams, and made a query of his own. What are powerhouses like this doing here? How are they not Chunin already? Kabuto turned what seemed a sympathetic look on Kiba, before answering. My cards have information on the nations in the exam as well. Konoha, Suna, Aim, Kusa, Oto, all of these are sending their very best genin out for this particular exam. The best of the best are here. Maybe not Oto, since they are a new village and relatively unknown, but the others all have serious threats. Hey Dosu, you hear that four-eyed bastard say that Oto wasn't a threat? I think we should teach him a lesson. The mummy identified as Dosu turned to his spiky-haired teammate, a smirk somehow visible through the bandages. You're right, Zaku. Come on Kin, we have an ignoramus to teach. The black-haired girl sitting with her team sighed and stood. She didn't really care for either of her teammates or Oto itself, but she had orders to follow, and life was definitely on her list of things she liked. Dosu leapt and swung at Kabuto, who dodged the attack narrowly, smirking until his glasses cracked. Dosu wasn't any better off, a backhand from Naruto had sent him to the ground right as his attack passed. Kabuto leaned over dry heaving, as an explosion of smoke came from the back of the room. No fighting without the express permission of the proctor, that being me, pissants. Don't forget the rules, scum, or you will be kicked from this exam. A man easily over 6 feet tall, with an array of scars on his face growled out, cowing the Oto genin immediately. Now that we have settled this matter, I am Marino Ibiki. I will monitor what happens during the first exam, after relaying the rules to all of you. Understood? All the assembled genin nodded, none daring to speak after his warning growl. This year, you will all be given a chunin to interrogate. We will send each team to a room, where you will pull the location of the next trial from them. No killing or maiming, but torture is expected. Come to the front and I will send your team to its room. As the genin lined up to get their assignments, the Jounin sensei for the youngest Konoha teams gathered in an area that would view what was happening. Ha ha ha, Ibiki as a proctor, Pops must want these kids to fail. Asuma was laughing heartily as he heard the proceedings, while Kakashi bemoaned not being able to proctor himself. He remembered that no one had made chunin that year, and it was one of his proudest achievements. What is so bad about the proctor? Isn't the test what makes it difficult? I doubt many genin have experience in TNI. Asuma humphed and went back to watching the screen, as Guy answered Kurenai. You see Kurenai-san, Ibiki is the head of TNI, and a sadist with a tendency for mental torture. He isn't really going to pass them for finding where the next trial takes place. They will pass based off of whether or not they make it within the time limit that he isn't going to mention until it is halfway over. The extra stress will make most attempts to gather information sloppy, and the genin will go anywhere if the chunin tells them to. I doubt more than half of them pass. Kurenai stared in shock as Guy gave her an insightful and apparently well-informed answer of why Ibiki being the proctor made the test harder. Based off of what Naruto had told her, Guy only suffered bursts of insight like these when his parasitic eyebrows slept once a month. While obviously his eyebrows were not what Naruto though they were, as that would be ridiculous, she knew that she was lucky that Guy had used his brain right then. Guy saw the shock and misread it as fear for her students. Yash. Worry not Kurenai-san. My son is youthful enough that your whole team will pass easily. Especially if he uses his ultimate technique in showing youth. Kurenai's feeling of enlightenment that Guy's insight had given was quickly removed. As Guy's eyebrows had moved slightly lower on his head as he spoke, shaking in place as he shouted about his philosophy of youth. Maybe Naruto is right, Guy might have alien symbiotes for eyebrows, nah, someone would have noticed if that was true. Naruto and his team were assigned to a chunin named Kotetsu, one of the eternal gate guards of Konoha. The three were currently discussing exactly how to get him to speak, talking loud enough for him to hear. So far, it was either something vaguely unpleasant with bugs or having to endure repeated closing and opening of tenketsu. Neither was pleasant, but Kotetsu could take it. Naruto was oddly being quiet until he performed the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and transformed his clone into his father. I saw you do that. I'm not gonna tell you just because an imposter of a jounin tells me. Hinata and Shino looked at the poor deluded fool regretfully before shutting their eyes and turning away. Yash. My most youthful son, let us engage in an embrace of youth. Kotetsuai twitched, but nothing else happened. Naruto sighed in regret and allowed his clone to embrace him. Suddenly a scene with a roaring waterfall, creating a rainbow rose behind the two, cherry blossoms and green leaves floating around them in an attempt to engage in the flowing youth. The guy clone cried tears of unrepentant joy, his eyebrows marching around his head like caterpillars. Kotetsu went from eye twitching to begging to be tortured in any other way. He even began crying as his reflection in the pool of water the fall went into slowly youthified in front of him, before rising from the water and joining in the hug. No matter how many times he pulsed his chakra to escape, nothing happened. Hinata walked to him with her eyes closed and whispered in his ear. If you want the images to stop, tell us where the next test is. Kotetsu put up a valiant effort and held out for 3 more seconds before offering to draw the group a map to Training Ground 44. Even stating he would never fall asleep on the job again if they promised to stop. With the acquisition of a map to their next test, and one mentally broken Chunin left in the room, Team 8 headed to the forest, eager to see if they beat the rest of the rookie teams. Gaara stared bored at the scarred Chunin in front of him. Mother said that he should shove some sand somewhere most awful, but that would smell terrible. Besides, Kankuro had a combination truth serum/stimulant. If he couldn't kill or maim the man, he would have nothing to do with him. Kankuro smirked as he worked on coating a senbon with his mixture, trying to decide where the creepiest place to administer the poison would be. Just as he moved to stab the man in his scar, Iruka moved to be untouched. Frustrated with the failure to be cruel and unusual in his methods, he stabbed the man in his gut. All they had to do was wait until the man cracked. Or until Tamari got bored and threatened to put the man's testicles in a vice until he answered them. Whichever came first. Team 7 had Izumo, Kotetsu's partner in guarding duty. The only times they didn't guard the gate, they guarded the Hokage's office door. After hearing one of Jiraiya and Hiruzen's conversations through the door, they lost the privilege of having more than one possible post. He was used to facing terrible boredom, ridiculous tedium, ANBU with short tempers, and Tora the cat. He was not going to break easily. Until Sasuke activated his now fully matured Sharingan and hit him with a dose of mind control. He sang like a canary after that. Really, Sasuke mused, his eyes were just not fair. But neither was losing your whole family at 8, save your awesome big brother, that did the killing. Indeed, if Sasuke was more patient he just would have bemoaned how terrible his life was until the man either told them or swallowed his own tongue and killed himself. With how easy it had been to gain the information, Team 7 had enough time to stock up on tools before going to Training Ground 44, just in case they had a long time to spend in there. Inuzuka Hana was incredibly bored. She had agreed to help with the Chunin exams only to find out that her little brother's classmates would try and interrogate her. The new Ino Shikacho had no skill in this area. Ino should have been able to interrogate her, but she spent more time shopping than learning the special mind jutsu of her clan. If she had acted that way, her mother would have whipped her until she acted like a kunoichi. Shikamaru watched as Ino whined and complained at Hana in an attempt to get her to tell them where to go. Chuji had offered her some chips if she would tell them, but had been shot down. Shikamaru considered everything he knew about Kiba's family before beginning a plan. A plan that would hopefully be devious enough that they could get their answers. I think I'll give it a try, Ino, no matter how troublesome it might be. At least now my mom can't say I didn't try. A fuming Ino stalked away from the stubborn object of her ire as Shikamaru replaced her. It's troublesome, but I can tell that the creepy forest with the chain link fences is where we are supposed to go. So since we can go there whether you tell us or not, have fun being tied up until whenever. Hana was shocked, and she made that thought known. How did you know? No one of your rank should know about Training Ground 44. Shikamaru sighed, whispering troublesome for good measure. I didn't know, I just saw some signs to keep out when I walked by it looking for new cloud watching spots my mom couldn't find. I also didn't know its official name. Thanks for letting me know though, it makes this test just a little less troublesome. Hana hadn't expected to be played in reverse psychology by a genin, but was glad that they untied her as they got ready to leave. Ino shouting at Shikamaru the whole way out that even Naruto's sporadic talks about youth were preferable to his constant use of troublesome. They practically sounded like a married couple. That would be a hilarious match. Just as Abiki's voice came over the speakers, letting the remaining teams know that the time limit had reached the halfway point. His laughter at hearing the genin scream, "What time limit?" still ringing through the halls, Iruka finally lost to Kankuro's drug. He needed to talk with someone or he would die. In his head anyway, since he was essentially tied up and dosed with speed. "Hey guys, how about one of you talk with me, huh? I need something to do before I go crazy." Gaara was the only one still paying attention to the instructor, and he was not exactly talkative. "Tell me where we are supposed to go, and I'll let you down to talk to other people." The dry monotone voice that escaped the short boy was spectacular at creeping people out. Iruka thought so anyway. "Oh, just go to the big creepy forest with all the signs that say to keep out. Now hurry up and let me down, I swear both my hands are numb from these stupid ropes." Gaara just left without doing anything, as did Kankuro. Temari wasn't a kind person, but she wasn't cruel enough to leave the man tied up in his classroom. She let him down and followed her brothers out of the building, looking for a giant creepy forest. That wouldn't be too hard to find in the village hidden by the leaves. She just hoped that this forest was creepy enough to stand out from the rest of the forest, which she found strange to begin with, having lived in a desert. Just 5 minutes after the Suna trio reached the forest, a multicolored smoke explosion made itself known in front of the assembled genin. "Greetings, brats. I am the incredibly sexy and still somehow single Madarashi Anko. If you made it here before me, you passed." The Chunin were told only to tell people that successfully took the information with the proper amount of flair where to go. "I proctor this next exam, where I send you kids into the forest and assume you probably die." The far too wide of a smile and cheery demeanor mixed with the uncaring words of death made most the genin instantly fear their psychotic if admittedly sexy new proctor. Kiba didn't quite pick up on the vibe though. "Yahoo Akamura my friend, I think I'm in love." A kunai whizzed right by the exuberant dog ninja, leaving a cut on his cheek. The scantily clad proctor was pressed up to Kiba's back and gave a little lick to the blood on his face, before scrunching up her nose and pouting childishly. "Aw, your blood doesn't taste very good." You're not my type anyway, not every attractive full-grown woman likes their prey young after all." This last statement was made with a wink at Naruto, who had a feeling that this psycho was probably the something he would see a lot of in the future. He just hoped that she wouldn't be another of his sensei's friends with a penchant for teasing. He got enough of that with Nico. Meanwhile, Kurenai was blushing and denying that anything was happening between her and her student to the rest of her colleagues. Anko would pay for this one. This was all for now. Thank you for watching, I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.